When people talk about the simplification of the Chinese language, they're normally referring to just the most recent developments of the 20th century. However, you'll also find that textbooks talk about simplification with another sense of the term in mind, stretching back for more than 1,000 years, basically throughout the whole known history of the written language. My first example is this word, yan. This is a reasonably ancient word that appears in literary figures of speech, but rarely in everyday conversation. The basic meaning of the word is swallow, not the verb to swallow, but the noun, meaning a type of migrating bird. If this is your first time seeing the character, you might wonder how this set of radicals ever gained a meaning related to birds, especially given how many other words there are in Chinese that clearly enough show pictographs of a bird facing left, like niao. The more you know about these radicals, the stranger it seems. On the left and right, we have the two halves of bei, meaning north, that we could also think of as a doubled spoon radical. Although, as I mentioned in an earlier video, the spoon radical is often used to represent a human figure in Chinese. At the bottom of the character, we have the standard abbreviation of the fire radical as 4 dots. In the middle of the glyph, we have the mouth radical, or at least a box of some kind, leaving us with a bit of a mystery at the top, as that figure isn't really a radical at all. The closest character in the modern script is nian, a literary way to write the numeral 20. So, when we put the whole character together, it looks like complete nonsense. And it is. How did we end up with a type of bird being represented by assembling together the symbols meaning 20, mouth, north, and fire? If the language has so many other symbols that just directly show you a picture of a bird, why was it necessary for the language to resort to this complex combination to indirectly suggest its meaning? When we look back at clerical script, the symbols have become a bit more symmetrical, but there's no clear hint as to how it all ended up this way. Seal script gives us a very clear next step, and then, suddenly, we can see what the symbols were supposed to represent in the oracle bones. In the extremely remote past, this was a picture of a bird, with the head at the top, 2 wings on either side, and so on. If you try writing out the character using the full form of the fire radical, you can see that the seal script was trying to render the feathered tail of the bird with 4 lines that vaguely resembled the fire radical. But even this vague resemblance disappears when the radical is reduced to just 4 dots. Although the 4 dots are a standard way to reduce the fire radical to a half-size form, it can obscure the etymology of the word. In this example, we'd be able to see the character much better without the abbreviation. Is this what we mean by the simplification of Chinese characters? Well, historically, it is one of the most important types of changes that we observe. A unified pictograph is broken down into smaller pieces, and those pieces are made to resemble radicals. Unfortunately, if we're really being honest, the result of this historical process is complete nonsense. And this is one of the reasons why so many native speakers of Chinese don't really want to learn the radicals, feeling that they'll only get more confused by knowing this stuff. Just to provide a rapid contrast to a very different pictograph of a bird, I can remember that the first time I saw this character, it just looked like a grid of lines to me. I managed to convince myself that it has some resemblance to the ancient picture of a bird facing left. In this case, we're also looking at a process of simplification, but here the image has been retained as a single unit instead of being broken into separate radicals. However, the streamlining of the brushstrokes has, again, reduced sense into nonsense. My third example seems simple, as the bottom half is an easily recognized symbol clearly related to the meaning of the word. However, what is the top half exactly? This isn't a radical, it isn't a phonetic component, it isn't a character, and it can't be broken down into radicals either. The vast majority of Chinese students will memorize the shape without knowing what it is supposed to be. But in fact, we're looking at an indirect echo of the same image of 2 hands doing something that we can still see at the top of the character, meaning to study, here shown in the bottom right corner. The seal script showing the two hands at the top doesn't provide any kind of shocking revelation about the meaning of the word. However, it is a meaningful symbol, and it should provide the student with a reminder of the meaning of the word, and also a bridge to related words that use the same image of two hands completing a task. Instead, what was once a meaningful symbol has been simplified into something that is completely meaningless. Again, this isn't simplification in the modern sense. This didn't happen in the 20th century. What we're talking about here is a much longer historical process of scribal changes that erases the logic that was once present in the composition of the characters. So, the ancient simplification of characters presents a few different problems for modern students. As we saw in the first example, unique images that actually show the meaning of the word and might be easy to remember have been broken down into a series of smaller symbols that don't make any sense at all. In these cases, there's no analysis of the symbols that will tell you the sound or meaning of the word. The radicals genuinely don't make sense. They've become an indirect way of sketching the original image, only known from the oracle bones. With all the types of simplification we've looked at, the meaningful links between characters disappear. We lose associations of meaning, sound, and etymology that formerly made the language more rewarding to learn. And, at the same time, there are false resemblances and false links between